Most gardeners think that bigger harvests demand bigger budgets. After 3 decades knee-deep in soil, battling every season from scorching summers to unexpected frosts, I can tell you the truth that changes everything. Some of the most powerful techniques in vegetable gardening cost absolutely nothing. Today I'm sharing 25 brilliant, battle-tested, zero-expense hacks that will help you grow dramatically more food with far less effort. These aren't just shortcuts. They're game-changing strategies I've refined over 30 years that turn ordinary backyard gardens into abundant, self-sustaining food factories. Stick around until hack number 19, where I'll show you a simple trick that can literally cut your weeding time in half. And stay for the bonus tip at the end, one tiny habit shift that might just transform how you garden forever. Ready? Let's grow more with less. The very first free hack every serious gardener should master is succession planting, and it will instantly change how productive your garden feels. Instead of sowing all your lettuce, radishes, beans, or carrots in one big burst, and then facing a massive glut you can't possibly eat before it bolts or goes to seed, you stagger your plantings every 2 to 3 weeks. Plant a short row of lettuce this week, another row in 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks after that. This simple timing tweak transforms what used to be a 1 or 2 week harvest frenzy into a steady, continuous supply that can easily last for months. In my 30 years of gardening, this single practice has probably saved me more wasted produce and frustration than anything else. You're using exactly the same seeds you already bought, the same garden space, and the same water, yet you completely eliminate waste while dramatically extending your fresh eating season. For cool season crops like lettuce, spinach, and radishes, succession planting is pure gold. It lets you keep harvesting tender, sweet young greens over and over instead of watching your entire crop turn bitter and bolt the moment the summer heat hits. The beauty is in the planning. Just 5 minutes with a calendar at the beginning of the season pays dividends all summer long. Once you start thinking in successions, you'll never go back to the old plant everything at once method again. The second hack that will save you endless hours of backbreaking work is deep mulching with completely free materials, specifically fallen leaves and straw. Every autumn, your neighbors rake up bags of leaves and leave them at the curb for pickup. Those bags aren't trash, they're pure garden gold. Collect them and spread the leaves 4 to 6 inches deep across all your vegetable beds. Do this once, and you accomplish 3 powerful things at the same time. You suppress weeds so effectively that you may never need to pull another weed again. You retain soil moisture so dramatically that you can cut your watering in half, even during the driest spells. And you continuously feed your soil as the organic matter slowly breaks down into rich, black humus. Straw works just as beautifully and is often available for free from local farmers right after harvest. The secret is going deep enough. A thin scattering of mulch does almost nothing, but a thick, generous blanket completely transforms your garden into a low-maintenance, self-regulating system. In my 30 years of gardening, deep mulching has been one of the highest ROI practices I've ever used. Your soil stays cool and moist in the heat of summer, earthworms multiply like crazy, and your back finally gets the rest it deserves from constant weeding and watering. Apply it in late fall or early spring, and by the time planting season arrives, your beds are already working for you instead of against you. The third technique that belongs in every single garden is composting your kitchen and yard waste. This is the ultimate zero-cost soil builder, turning things you would normally throw away into black gold that plants absolutely crave. Vegetable peels, coffee grounds, eggshells, grass clippings, and fallen leaves all break down into dark, crumbly compost that's far superior to anything you can buy at the garden center. You don't need a fancy tumbler or expensive compost bin. A simple pile in the corner of your yard works perfectly. The method is straightforward. Layer green materials, kitchen scraps, grass clippings, with brown materials, dried leaves, cardboard, like a lasagna. Keep the pile reasonably moist, about as damp as a wrung-out sponge, and turn it occasionally with a pitchfork. In a few months you'll have rich, finished compost ready to use. After 3 decades gardening, I can tell you that consistent composting has been one of the biggest reasons my garden stays so productive year after year. A single active compost pile can easily produce hundreds of pounds of premium amendment annually, enough to enrich every bed in your garden. Every banana peel or apple core you add is one less bag of commercial fertilizer you ever need to buy. Not only does this save money, but it also builds living soil teeming with beneficial microbes and earthworms. Healthy soil means healthier plants, stronger disease resistance, and dramatically better yields. Start small if you're new to it. Even a single pile will quickly show you why experienced gardeners call compost black gold. The fourth hack will save you money year after year and is one of the smartest long-term investments you can make in your garden. Saving seeds from open-pollinated and heirloom varieties. When you grow tomatoes, peppers, beans, or lettuce from open-pollinated seeds instead of hybrids, you can simply collect the seeds at the end of the season and plant them again next year, for free. Unlike hybrids, these varieties produce offspring that are identical to the parent plant, so you get the same great quality season after season. Here's how I do it after 30 years of refining the process. For tomatoes, let a few of your absolute best fruits ripen fully on the vine. Scoop out the seeds. Ferment them in a little water for a few days to remove the gel coating. This also kills off many seed-borne diseases. Then rinse, dry thoroughly, and store them in a cool, dark place. Beans and lettuce are even easier. Just let the pods or flower heads dry completely on the plant before harvesting the seeds. What truly amazes me is how these saved seeds adapt and improve over time. They become finely tuned to your specific garden conditions, your soil, your climate, your microenvironment, often growing more vigorous and productive than anything you could order from a catalog. In my own garden, the tomato strains I've saved for over a decade now outperform new commercial varieties in both flavor and resilience. By saving seeds, you eliminate ongoing seed costs forever while building your own locally adapted varieties. It's one of the most empowering feelings in gardening, knowing you're no longer dependent on seed companies and that your garden is literally reproducing itself. The fifth free technique is one of my personal favorites because it's incredibly efficient: trench composting directly in your garden beds. This method completely bypasses the traditional compost bin by burying kitchen scraps right where your future plants will grow. It's simple and brilliant. Dig a trench 8 to 12 inches deep between your vegetable rows or in a fallow section of the garden. Fill it with fruit and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, eggshells, and other compostable kitchen waste. Then cover it with soil and let nature take over. Earthworms and soil microbes go to work immediately, breaking everything down in place and depositing nutrients exactly where plant roots will soon reach them. By the time you plant that area the following season, those scraps have transformed into rich, nutrient-dense humus. After 30 years in the garden, I can tell you this is one of the smartest labor-saving methods I use. It works especially well when you combine it with crop rotation. Bury this year's scraps in next year's planting zone while this season's crops grow nearby. You save all the effort of maintaining a separate compost pile, turning, and hauling, while delivering nutrients with laser-like precision exactly where they're needed most. Trench composting turns your garden into a living, self-fertilizing system. No waste leaves the property, and your soil gets better every single year. The sixth hack turns garbage into groceries, literally. It's one of the most fun and satisfying free techniques I use. Regrowing vegetables directly from kitchen scraps. The next time you chop green onions, don't throw away those root ends. Place them in a small glass of water on a sunny windowsill. Within just a few days, you'll see fresh green shoots pushing upward, ready to harvest again and again. Celery bases, lettuce hearts, bok choy stumps, and even the bottoms of spring onions all regenerate the same way. Once they develop strong roots, transplant them into soil for even more vigorous, long-term growth. After 30 years gardening, I still get a kick out of this simple magic. It works in any climate zone because you started indoors during cold months. It costs absolutely nothing, produces fresh food from items that were headed straight to the trash, and gives you an incredibly satisfying visual reminder that plants desperately want to grow and multiply. Kids especially love watching vegetables come back to life right before their eyes. It's one of the best ways I've found to get children excited about gardening and food production. What starts as a simple windowsill experiment often turns into a full tray of productive plants that keep giving all season long. This hack alone can give you a surprising amount of extra harvest from things you were already buying anyway. The seventh technique is a true multiplier that turns one plant into dozens, completely free, propagating herbs from stem cuttings. A single basil plant from the nursery or farmer's market can become a dozen or more thriving plants in just a few weeks. Here's exactly how I do it after decades of refining the process. Snip 4 to 6 inch stems just below a leaf node. Remove the lower leaves and place the cuttings in a glass of plain water. Within a week or two, roots will emerge. Once those roots reach an inch or two long, transplant them into soil. Basil roots incredibly fast, often in just 5 days. Mint is even more aggressive. One cutting can fill an entire pot by the end of the season. Rosemary, oregano, thyme, and sage take a little longer but root just as reliably with patience. In my 30 years of gardening, this has been one of the most cost-effective ways to build an abundant herb garden. Instead of buying multiple expensive plants every year, you turn one $3 plant into enough herbs to supply your kitchen and every neighbor on the street. I also take late summer cuttings to root and bring indoors for fresh winter herbs on the windowsill. This method doesn't just save money, it gives you stronger, better adapted plants that are already conditioned to your garden's conditions. Once you master herb propagation, you'll never want to buy potted herbs again. The 8th hack puts your weekly lawn waste to work as powerful, free fertilizer and mulch. Every time you mow, you're generating nitrogen-rich material that heavy-feeding vegetables desperately need. Fresh grass clippings contain roughly 4% nitrogen by weight, making them an outstanding organic fertilizer for corn, squash, tomatoes, cucumbers, and other hungry crops. Here's how I've used them successfully for decades. Apply the clippings as a thin mulch around your vegetables, keeping them an inch or two away from the stems to prevent rot or mold. As the clippings dry and decompose, they slowly release nitrogen directly into the soil while also suppressing weeds and locking in precious moisture. The key is applying thin layers, no more than an inch at a time, and letting them dry slightly before adding the next round. Thick piles of fresh clippings can turn slimy and smelly, but used correctly, they deliver a gentle, steady feeding every single week throughout the growing season. After 30 years in the garden, I can confidently say that consistent use of grass clippings has cut my purchased fertilizer needs by more than half. It's the perfect closed-loop system. The lawn feeds the garden, and the garden's compost eventually feeds the lawn. You get free nitrogen, better soil structure, fewer weeds, and healthier plants, all from something you were going to discard anyway. Stop bagging up your clippings and start spreading them where they can do the most good. Your vegetables will thank you with stronger growth and bigger harvests. The 9th free resource arrives like clockwork every autumn, and it's one of the most valuable soil amendments you can create without spending a dime: leaf mold from fallen leaves. While regular compost breaks down mainly through bacterial action, leaf mold decomposes through fungal activity, creating something entirely different and exceptionally beneficial for your garden. Gather autumn leaves into a simple wire bin, a pile in a shaded corner, or even large plastic bags with a few holes poked in them. Keep them moist and simply wait. Unlike hot composting, you don't need to turn the pile at all. After 1 year, you'll have partially broken down leaf mold that's perfect for mulching. After 2 years, you get dark, crumbly material that holds moisture like a sponge and smells like a forest floor. In my 3 decades of gardening, aged leaf mold has become my secret weapon for soil improvement. When sifted fine, it makes an outstanding seed-starting mix. Worked into heavy clay or sandy soils, it transforms them into rich, friable loam that plants absolutely thrive in. It improves soil structure, feeds beneficial fungi, and retains moisture far better than plain compost in many situations. Every fall, nature delivers an almost endless supply of leaves that most people treat as a nuisance. Smart gardeners recognize them as a free, annual gift of future garden gold. Start your leaf mold piles this year, and in a couple of seasons you'll have one of the highest quality amendments available, completely free and better than anything money can buy. The 10th technique costs nothing but a few seconds of your time per plant and delivers noticeably better tomatoes. Pinching out suckers on indeterminate varieties. Indeterminate tomatoes constantly push out side shoots, called suckers, right in the crotch between the main stem and each branch. If you leave them alone, those suckers grow into full stems that produce more tomatoes, but smaller ones, while creating a dense, tangled jungle that invites disease and shades the fruit. After 30 years growing tomatoes, I've learned that by pinching out suckers while they're small, you redirect the plant's energy into fewer, much larger, and better flavored fruits that ripen earlier. Simply snap them off with your fingers when they're 2 to 4 inches long. Pay special attention to removing suckers below the first flower cluster. This quick pruning improves air circulation, reduces fungal problems like early blight, and lets sunlight reach the developing fruit. The plant still produces roughly the same total weight of tomatoes, but you get bigger, juicier, more delicious fruits that are far more satisfying for slicing, sandwiches, and fresh eating. In my garden, this single practice consistently raises the quality of my harvest from good to outstanding. It keeps the plants manageable, cleaner, and healthier without any extra tools or products. Once you get in the habit of checking and pinching suckers every week or two, it becomes second nature, and the results on your plate make it completely worth it. The 11th hack turns your regular grocery store runs into a free garden center, growing productive vegetables directly from kitchen staples you already buy. That head of garlic sitting on your counter contains enough cloves to plant an entire row. Those potatoes sprouting in your pantry are practically begging to become a full harvest. Ginger roots, sweet potatoes, and even certain onions from the produce aisle can all be turned into thriving garden plants. Here's how I've done it successfully for decades. Separate garlic bulbs into individual cloves and plant them pointed end up in the fall for a big summer harvest. For potatoes, cut sprouting ones into chunks with 2 or 3 eyes each and plant them after your last frost. With sweet potatoes, suspend them partially in water to grow slips, then transplant those slips into the garden. You're essentially getting high-quality planting stock for free from groceries you were buying anyway. After 30 years in the garden, I'm still impressed by how well this works. A single grocery store garlic bulb can easily yield 8 to 10 full, fat heads by harvest time. Store-bought potatoes often produce impressive crops too, especially if you choose organic ones that haven't been treated to stop sprouting. This hack is perfect for beginners because it's low risk and incredibly rewarding. You save serious money on seed potatoes and garlic sets while discovering which varieties perform best in your local conditions. It's another beautiful example of closing the loop, turning everyday food into tomorrow's abundance. The 12th technique harnesses nature's own built-in pest control system, companion planting for pest confusion. Many garden pests find their target plants by smell. When you interplant strongly aromatic companions among your vegetables, you mask those scents and leave the pests confused and disoriented. It's one of the most elegant, chemical-free strategies I've used in my 30 years of gardening. Plant basil right beside your tomatoes. Not only does it help repel aphids and tomato hornworms, but many gardeners, myself included, notice it actually improves the flavor of the tomatoes. Grow carrots and onions together, and you'll confuse both carrot flies and onion flies, since each is repelled by the other's scent. My favorite example is the classic Three Sisters guild: corn, beans, and squash. The corn provides a natural trellis for the beans to climb. The beans fix nitrogen in the soil to feed the hungry corn, and the sprawling squash shades the ground, retains moisture, and suppresses weeds with its large leaves while its prickly stems deter larger pests. Companion planting doesn't eliminate every single pest, but after decades of observation, I can tell you it consistently lowers pest pressure enough to produce noticeably healthier plants and better harvests. Your garden becomes a complex, confusing maze for insects instead of an easy all-you-can-eat buffet. Start small by pairing just a few compatible plants this season. The results will convince you to use this technique everywhere. The 13th hack is a masterclass in space efficiency that literally doubles your harvest from the exact same garden bed. Interplanting fast-maturing crops with slower-growing ones. Radishes are ready in just 25 to 30 days, while carrots need 70 days or more. Sow them together in the same row. The radishes pop up quickly, give you an early harvest, and are out of the ground long before the carrots need that space. The quick radishes even help mark your rows and loosen the soil for the slower carrots coming up behind them. I've been using this technique for 30 years, and it never fails to impress me. Lettuce thrives in the partial shade under tall tomato plants during the hot summer months when it would normally bolt in full sun. Bush beans can fill the gaps between slow-maturing peppers early in the season, giving you a second crop from the same bed before the peppers really take off. You prepare the same soil, water the same area, and tend the same space, but instead of harvesting one crop, you get 2 or even 3 successions from it. This approach is especially powerful in small gardens or urban plots where every square foot counts. In my experience, interplanting doesn't just increase total yield, it creates a more resilient, living garden system with better ground coverage and fewer bare spots for weeds to exploit. Once you start thinking in layers and timing instead of single crop rows, your garden's productivity can easily jump 50% or more without any extra work or expense. The 14th free hack slashes your water bill while giving your plants the kind of water they truly prefer, rainwater harvesting with barrels. A single inch of rain falling on a modest 1,000 square foot roof can generate over 600 gallons of pure, soft water. Even a simple setup with 1 or 2 barrels under a downspout captures hundreds of gallons during each decent storm. Position food-grade barrels beneath your downspouts. Add a screen on top to keep out debris and mosquitoes. And install a spigot near the bottom for easy access. Connect several barrels in series, and you'll have a serious water reserve. After 30 years gardening through droughts and heat waves, I can tell you that rainwater is noticeably superior to treated city water. It contains no chlorine or fluoride, arrives at a temperature plants love, and carries trace atmospheric nutrients. Vegetables, herbs, and fruiting crops respond with stronger growth, better flavor, and improved resilience when watered with rainwater instead of tap water. Check your local regulations. Some areas have restrictions, while others actually offer rebates or incentives for rainwater collection. A few connected barrels can easily carry a small to medium garden through weeks of dry weather without touching your utility bill. In my garden, this system has become one of the smartest infrastructure investments I've ever made, and it costs almost nothing once the barrels are in place. Rainwater harvesting turns every storm into free, high-quality irrigation and gives you peace of mind during dry spells. The 15th technique is one of the most powerful ways to eliminate weeds without any chemicals: cardboard sheet mulching. When starting new beds or reclaiming overgrown areas, cardboard is your secret weapon. Lay large pieces of cardboard directly over grass or weeds, overlapping the edges by several inches so there are no gaps. Wet it thoroughly, then cover it with several inches of mulch, compost, or soil. The cardboard completely blocks all light, smothering everything underneath within weeks. Earthworms and soil microbes work from below, breaking the cardboard down into organic matter while improving the soil structure. In a few months, the cardboard disappears entirely, leaving you with rich, weed-free soil where stubborn grass or perennial weeds once ruled. After 30 years of battling tough weeds, I consider sheet mulching with cardboard one of the smartest, least-effort transformations I've ever made in a garden. It works brilliantly for creating permanent pathways that stay weed-free all season long. Grocery stores, appliance shops, and moving companies are usually happy to give away large boxes for free. Unlike plastic landscape fabric that stays in the soil forever, cardboard decomposes completely and actually feeds the earth. This method has allowed me to convert lawns into productive vegetable beds in a single season with almost zero digging. It's clean, effective, and turns someone else's waste into fertile garden real estate. The 16th hack gives you free, slow-release fertilizer that's available at almost any coffee shop: spent coffee grounds. Coffee shops produce pounds of used grounds every single day, and most baristas are happy to bag them up and give them away rather than send them to the landfill. These grounds contain about 2% nitrogen plus smaller amounts of phosphorus and potassium, making them an excellent gentle fertilizer. I've been using coffee grounds in my garden for nearly 30 years, and they've become a staple amendment. Work them lightly into the soil around leafy greens like lettuce, spinach, kale, and Swiss chard that love the nitrogen boost. You can also sprinkle them as a thin side dressing throughout the growing season or mix them into your compost pile. A few important tips from long experience. Always use them in moderation. A thin layer worked into the top inch of soil is perfect, but thick piles can compact, repel water, and even temporarily stunt growth. Contrary to popular belief, used coffee grounds are close to neutral pH, not highly acidic, so they're safe for most vegetables. This practice is a beautiful win-win. You divert waste from landfills and give your plants a steady supply of organic nitrogen. In my garden, regular applications of coffee grounds have noticeably improved the vigor of my leafy crops and reduced my need for other nitrogen sources. Just remember to ask your local cafes. Many will even save them for you if you ask nicely. The 17th hack puts your breakfast scraps to work, preventing one of the most frustrating problems in the vegetable garden: blossom end rot on tomatoes and peppers. That sunken, black, leathery spot on the bottom of otherwise perfect fruit is usually caused by a calcium deficiency or inconsistent calcium uptake. The solution is as simple as it is free: crushed eggshells. Eggshells are nearly pure calcium carbonate, and when broken down, they provide a steady, long-term source of this critical nutrient. After 30 years growing nightshades, this has become one of my most reliable preventive measures. Save your eggshells all winter, rinse them, dry them in the oven on low heat. Then crush or grind them into the smallest pieces possible. Powder is ideal for faster availability. Work the crushed shells into the soil around your tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants at planting time, concentrating them in the root zone. Some gardeners also notice that the sharp edges help deter soft-bodied slugs and snails that dislike crawling over them. The shells break down slowly, releasing calcium throughout the entire growing season and even into future years. Every egg you crack for breakfast becomes a direct investment in healthier, blemish-free fruit. In my garden, consistent use of eggshells has dramatically reduced blossom and rot even in years with uneven watering or hot, stressful conditions. It's a perfect closed-loop practice, turning kitchen waste into stronger plants and better harvests, without spending a single dollar on commercial calcium supplements. The 18th free practice is a simple but highly effective disease prevention strategy that experienced tomato growers swear by, pruning the lower foliage on tomato plants. Many common fungal diseases, especially early blight and septoria leaf spot, start when soil splashes onto the lowest leaves during rain or watering. By removing the bottom 8 to 12 inches of foliage once your plants reach about 2 feet tall, you break that infection pathway completely. Here's my method after 30 years of growing tomatoes. Once the plant is established and has its first fruit cluster, prune off all leaves and branches below that lowest cluster. This creates clear air space between the soil and the remaining foliage. Air circulates better, leaves dry faster after rain or dew, and disease spores have a much harder time reaching vulnerable tissue. The plant doesn't miss those lower leaves at all. The upper canopy provides more than enough photosynthesis for strong fruit production. This quick pruning takes just seconds per plant, but dramatically reduces disease pressure without any sprays or fungicides. In my garden, this single habit has cut tomato disease problems by more than half. The plants stay cleaner, the fruit stays healthier, and I spend far less time fighting problems later in the season. Combine this with good airflow between plants, and you create conditions where tomatoes can truly thrive instead of just survive. The 19th hack is the one experienced gardeners swear by, and for very good reason. This is the technique that can literally cut your weeding time in half, the stale seedbed method. It's brilliantly simple and incredibly effective. Prepare your garden bed exactly as if you were ready to plant. Rake the soil smooth, work it to a fine tilth, and water it thoroughly. Then walk away for 2 full weeks. During that time, the disturbance and moisture trigger the first big flush of weed seeds near the surface to germinate. Just before you sow or transplant your actual crop, lightly scrape the surface with a hoe or rake to kill all those tiny weed seedlings. Do it gently. You only want to disturb the top quarter-inch of soil so you don't bring up a new wave of weed seeds from deeper down. Now plant your vegetables into a bed where the first generation of weeds has already been eliminated. After 30 years in the garden, I can tell you this is one of the highest leverage practices I use. Your crops get a massive head start while the competition is already defeated. This technique shines especially well with slow-germinating direct-seeded crops like carrots, lettuce, parsnips, and beets that normally struggle against fast-growing weeds. 2 weeks of patience upfront saves dozens of hours of tedious hand-weeding later in the season. The difference is dramatic: cleaner beds, stronger seedlings, and far less stress throughout the summer. Once you try the stale seedbed method, you'll wonder why you ever planted straight into unprepared, weed-laden soil. The 20th technique maximizes your harvest per square foot and turns small spaces into highly productive gardens. Vertical growing using free or salvage supports. Cucumbers, pole beans, squash, small melons, and even some tomatoes climb eagerly when given the chance. Growing them vertically produces more fruit in less ground space, keeps the produce cleaner and easier to harvest, and improves air circulation around the foliage, which dramatically reduces fungal diseases. You don't need expensive trellises or store-bought structures. After 30 years of gardening, I've learned that the best supports are often free. Lash fallen branches together into rustic tripods, stand wooden pallets upright, and secure them. Or use old ladders, bed frames, and wire fencing salvage from construction sites or dumpsters. Strong twine or rope strung between sturdy stakes works wonderfully for pole beans. In my garden, a single vertical structure supporting pole beans can produce as much as a ground-level row 3 times its length. The plants get better sunlight. The fruit hangs at eye level, so nothing hides underneath leaves. and I spend far less time hunting for cucumbers that have turned into yellow monsters on the ground. Vertical growing is especially valuable in small urban or backyard plots where every square foot matters. It also makes maintenance easier, no bending over, better pest visibility, and cleaner harvests. Start simple this season with a few bamboo stakes and twine, and you'll quickly see why experienced gardeners consider vertical growing one of the smartest space-saving moves you can make. The 21st hack requires nothing but a little planning and pays enormous dividends year after year. Implementing a simple crop rotation plan. Growing the same vegetables in the exact same spot season after season depletes specific nutrients and allows pest and disease populations to build up in that soil. By rotating plant families to different locations each year, you break these cycles naturally and keep your garden healthier with almost zero extra effort. Here's the straightforward 4-year system I've followed successfully for decades. Move nightshades, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, potatoes, to where legumes grew the previous year. Beans and peas fix nitrogen that heavy-feeding tomatoes love. Follow nightshades with brassicas, cabbage, broccoli, kale. Then plant root crops, carrots, beets, radishes. Finally, bring legumes back to restart the cycle. You don't need a complicated chart. Even simply moving your tomatoes to the opposite end of the garden each season makes a noticeable difference. Keep a simple garden journal or sketch a quick map each spring noting what grew where. It takes just a few minutes, but prevents many problems before they start. After 30 years of gardening, crop rotation remains one of the most powerful non-chemical tools I use. My plants show stronger growth, fewer disease issues, and better yields compared to the years when I planted the same things in the same beds repeatedly. It improves soil balance, reduces pest pressure, and lets nature do the heavy lifting for you. This practice costs absolutely nothing but forethought, and it's one of those quiet habits that separates good gardens from truly exceptional ones. The 20-second technique dates back thousands of years and remains one of the most brilliant examples of companion planting I've ever used. The Three Sisters Planting Guild. Indigenous peoples of North America perfected this polyculture long ago by growing corn, beans, and squash together in a mutually supportive community. After 30 years of experimenting with it in my own garden, I can tell you it still works beautifully and outperforms growing any of these crops in isolation. Here's how it works. The tall corn stalks serve as a living trellis for the beans to climb. The beans fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil, feeding the heavy nitrogen demands of the corn. The squash sprawls along the ground beneath them. Its large leaves shade the soil to retain moisture, suppress weeds, and its prickly stems help deter larger animal pests. The timing is important for success. Plant your corn first in small clusters and let it reach about 6 inches tall. Then plant pole beans at the base of each corn stalk so they can start climbing as the corn grows. Finally, sow squash or pumpkin seeds between the corn clusters so they can spread outward. This traditional system thrives in zones 4 through 10 and produces far more food per square foot than planting the 3 crops separately. In my garden, the Three Sisters bed consistently delivers impressive yields of sweet corn, fresh beans, and abundant squash while building soil fertility at the same time. It's a perfect demonstration that cooperation in the garden almost always beats competition. Once you see how these 3 plants support each other, you'll understand why this ancient method is still one of the smartest ways to garden today. The 23rd hack prevents heartbreaking transplant failures and is one of the most important steps between starting seeds indoors and getting strong, productive plants in the garden. Proper hardening off. Seedlings grown indoors or in a greenhouse are pampered, soft, tender, and completely unprepared for the real world of direct sun, wind, temperature swings, and drying air. Move them straight outside and they can suffer shock, wilt, burn, or even die within hours. Hardening off gradually acclimates them so they develop thicker leaves, stronger stems, and better resilience. Here's the protocol I've refined over 30 years, over 7 to 10 days. Start by placing your seedlings outside in a sheltered, shady spot for just 1 to 2 hours on the first day. Each subsequent day, increase their time outside, gradually introduce more direct sunlight, and expose them to gentle breezes. Bring them back inside at night if frost or strong winds are forecast. By the end of the week, they should be able to stay out full-time without wilting or scorching. This process costs nothing but a bit of patience and attention, yet skipping it wastes all the time, effort, and seeds you invested in raising those transplants. In my garden, Properly hardened-off seedlings establish faster, suffer far less stress, and outperform rush transplants all season long. They develop deeper root systems quicker and show noticeably better vigor and disease resistance. Take the time to harden off properly, and you'll be rewarded with sturdy, confident plants that hit the ground running instead of struggling to survive. It's a small investment of care that makes a massive difference in your final harvest. The 24th free resource comes straight from your fireplace or fire pit, clean wood ash, a powerful natural source of potassium and soil pH adjustment. If you burn untreated hardwood for heat or enjoyment, the resulting ash contains valuable potassium along with calcium, magnesium, and various trace minerals. Potassium is essential for strong fruit development, disease resistance, and overall plant vigor, making wood ash particularly beneficial for tomatoes, peppers, root crops like carrots and beets, and other fruiting vegetables. Here's how I've applied it successfully for decades. Sprinkle it lightly around your plants, roughly 1 pound per 20 square feet, no more than once or twice per season. A light dusting is all you need. Wood ash also gently raises soil pH, which is helpful if your soil tends to be acidic. Just avoid using it around acid-loving plants like blueberries, azaleas, or potatoes. Important safety notes from long experience. Always store ash in a metal container with a lid because it can remain caustic when fresh. Never use ash from treated lumber, painted wood, charcoal briquettes, or coal. These can contain harmful chemicals. Only use clean, untreated hardwood ash. In my 30-year garden, regular light applications of wood ash have noticeably improved fruit quality and root crop yields while helping balance soil pH without expensive amendments. It's another perfect example of turning a household byproduct into garden gold. Use it wisely and sparingly, and your plants will show stronger stems, better fruit set, and improved resilience. The 25th and final hack extends your growing season for free using simple milk jugs and plastic bottles. Homemade cloches, mini greenhouses. Cut the bottom off a clean plastic milk jug or 2-liter soda bottle, and you have an instant protective cover for tender transplants. Place these cloches over newly planted seedlings in early spring to shield them from late frosts, cold nights, and harsh winds. Press the edges slightly into the soil for stability. Remove the cap during sunny days to prevent overheating, then replace it at night to trap warmth. This simple trick can advance your planting date by 2 to 3 weeks in spring and protect fall crops from early frosts. Clear jugs work best because they let maximum light through. In my 30 years of gardening, these free cloches have saved countless seedlings and given me significantly longer harvests every single season. Keep a collection ready each spring, and you'll be setting out tomatoes and peppers while your neighbors are still waiting for safer weather. And now for the bonus tip that smart gardeners have quietly relied on for generations. One tiny habit that can dramatically improve plant health. Water your garden in the morning whenever possible. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. Morning watering allows the foliage to dry completely before evening. This dramatically reduces fungal diseases that thrive in cool, damp overnight conditions. Plants also photosynthesize most actively in the morning, so readily available moisture supports their peak growth period. Watering at midday wastes a lot through evaporation, while evening watering leaves leaves wet all night, creating perfect conditions for powdery mildew, blight, and other problems. After 3 decades observing this, I can tell you that simply shifting your watering routine to early morning has been one of the most effective disease prevention moves I've ever made. It costs nothing, requires no extra effort, yet it can mean the difference between a healthy, thriving garden and one constantly fighting fungal issues. Thanks for sticking with me through all 25 powerful, zero-cost hacks. These aren't theories. They're proven practices I've refined over 30 years that will help you grow more food with less work and almost no expense. If you found this valuable, hit that like button, subscribe for more practical gardening wisdom, and drop a comment telling me which hack you're most excited to try first. Now go out there and grow an incredible garden, the free way.